Good evening, everyone. This is Lindsay Prendergast here, leading a live panel discussion this evening with several educational leaders from around the world on the topic of conducting teacher evaluations during the pandemic. This panel is hosted by Educators Without Borders and presented by School Rubric. This is a regular panel that convenes leading voices in education on a regular basis to tackle and discuss some of the most important and notable education issues we face today. What we have seen is that months into arguably the most tumultuous school year in recent history, one of the elephants in the room has become, where have the classroom observation practices gone? If they have continued to take place, how effectively are they working? Are they a fair basis for making any high-stakes decisions? More importantly, are they resulting in instructional improvements and increased student learning outcomes? Around the world, we know that schools are delivering instruction in a myriad of ways. Teachers are overcoming tremendous challenge to accommodate the unique demands of the different environments, including virtual instruction through online platforms, hybrid models with students participating both in person and remotely, depending upon schedules, and at times even within one class period. In some cases, they're fully in person, but with adaptations to make sure that social distancing and safe health practices such as face masks and allowing for modified class sizes. So in short, there is almost nothing normal about this school year. It is increasingly apparent that the necessity of remote learning or some inclusion of this option is not going to suddenly diminish. Rather, it's likely here to stay in some form for the indefinite future. So it remains incumbent upon school leaders to continue providing quality, effective feedback cycles to ensure that teachers and learners not only survive, but thrive in this new environment. Yet, teachers, we know, are arguably experiencing unprecedented levels of stress on both a professional and a personal level. Evaluations have a reputation for causing anxiety even in normal times. And with all of the abrupt changes to the instructional environment, teachers and leaders alike have been reporting to feel like this is their first year in the field all over again. According to the National Council on Teacher Quality, 34 states in the United States tie student achievement and growth directly to teacher evaluations, beyond the basic measure of classroom observations. Internationally, schools must uphold teacher evaluation systems to fulfill accreditation requirements, though there may be more latitude in how they are administered. Last spring, hundreds of districts in the United States released schools from the obligation of even conducting evaluations, least of all, connecting them to student learning measures, and international schools followed similar changes. The lack of state requirements is not an indicator that evaluation and professional growth do not matter, said Colleen O'Neill. She's the Associate Commissioner of Educator Talent for Colorado. But rather, it's an indicator that flexibility in requirements is needed for districts to focus their work as they see is needed to support their students and teachers. So few, if any, we know could have foreseen the duration of these massive changes. Months into the new school year, at a time when leaders typically begin conducting classroom visits, uncertainty abounds. Charlotte Danielson, creator of the Framework for Teaching Evaluation System, she even advocates that teachers need support, not scores. Recognizing the many complex implications and also the need for adjustments to teacher evaluation practices in this current era, we wonder, how are practitioners navigating this uncharted territory? So with that said, it is my pleasure today to introduce you to a panel of education leaders from around the world as we discuss their experiences and insight into navigating the complex reality in which we all currently find ourselves. Today we have Dr. Jay Jones, a principal in Danville, Virginia, who has over 33 years of experience in public education, both in the classroom and in administration at all levels. He believes that all students can learn and grow. Jay is passionate about collaborating with other colleagues to help with strategies as a means for all students to learn and grow. Jay is also a professional learning consultant with NWEA. We'll also welcome tonight Chris Irvin. Chris is the MYP Principal at the International School of Nanshan, Shenzen. He's a passionate, caring, and dedicated leader. He believes strongly in striving for harmony in his life, and Chris trusts that his passions and joie de vivre are contagious and can enrich the lives of those around him. He brings 20 plus years of international education and 5 years of international school administration to the panel, Canadian born and internationally minded. And finally, Dr. Robert Thornell is an experienced educator with a demonstrated history of working in educational leadership and mentoring other instructional leaders. He is a past state board member for Texas ASCD and has presented at the state and national level on various topics revolving around instructional leadership. He currently serves as the Chief Executive Director for Learning and Teaching in Lewisville ISD in Texas. So we've gathered educators from around the world this evening. They've taken their time, or other educators have taken their time to submit questions to the panel. So let's get right into it.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Simpson, the upper primary principal at the International School of Nanshan, Shenzen. And my question would be, what strategies would you recommend for building the comfort level of observing someone in this new digital environment without the warmth and just the general comfort level that comes from having someone in the classroom in person, something that we're all quite used to? What do you recommend for this new digital approach? Thanks.
Actually, you said the right thing in regards to this is a brand new environment that we're dealing with today. Very unprecedented. Not only as administrators, we're having to look at how do we observe virtually, but at the same time, how do we observe hybrid as well? One thing that we do, I think, is a good approach to ease the comfort level, right? To ease our teachers' fear, is to actually do a lot of virtual walkthroughs. To actually, before you do your observations, is to do some virtual walkthroughs. One thing that we do is we actually can film what we see on the other side of the camera, show that to them, have them look through the process there, have a conversation with the admin, let them tell us, these are things I've continued to work on. That way it eases their fear, because one thing we always say is we're all in this together. This is all new to all of us. And when we look at virtual observations, we want to make sure the kids are still learning, the kids are working, the kids are still engaged, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the teachers have it eased through this pandemic and have to do these virtual observations. Didn't even do a pre-observation conference, before we start. Hey, here's the observation form. We're all in this together. Have them have conversation about what they might feel that they need some work with, and then have those conversations. But I think doing that and let them know we're all in this together is a great opportunity for our teachers to feel at ease during this time.
Fantastic, Dr. Jones. Thank you so much. And that's some great things to think about there. Chris, I wonder, would you have some experience to add? I know based on some conversations we've had, I think you would.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Thumbs up?
Yeah.
All right. So to segue a little bit, modeling the lead learning. So you're in there with them. You're modeling that experience. You're using the same tools as they are that you expect them to teach with. And I made a conscious decision doing my first screencast, and I shared that later with staff about I could do this 17 times, or I could do it 2 or 3 times and, move on. And, I shared that I did it 2-3 times, and because you can't do 17 screencasts. We're not going to be doing perfection here. We're going to be doing our best with what we have, given our, resources and whatnot. The other thing I would add too is the tech training itself. make sure that happens, and that, you're going to have different people at different levels of comfort with the tech. And just like the way we teach students, we have to scaffold that a little bit too. So some people may not get anything out of the PD that you provide and need some support additionally, some coaching, one-on-one type thing. And just like our students, we need to provide that for our teachers.
Super. Some great avenues there for setting your teachers up for success. I like it. Dr. Thornell, I would love to hear your insight as well.
Well, the first thing I would think of is when we start talking about evaluations at all, it needs to go with trust and relationships with our staff. If you didn't have a good relationship built with your staff in March of 2020, you probably don't have one now. And so working through that, I think, is very, very important. But then taking through the technical side, I think exactly what Jim said was right. The pre-conference is so important. What are we trying to accomplish here? And how can I help you? And how can I help you feel comfortable and supportive? And I think it's okay to give teachers a mulligan. Say, hey, this didn't go well. We're going to start over. We're going to try it again. And I think that builds a little trust and a little, hopefully some help and evaluation during the evaluation for them. So.
Fantastic. Wonderful ideas. And thank you for setting the stage for a great discussion, everybody. Looking forward to continuing. We have a second question from Heather Esmeraldo. Heather is an intermediate school teacher from Pennsylvania.
Hi, my question is, what do you believe are the most important priorities for focus of teacher observations in a virtual instruction setting, and why? Thank you.
Is that for me first?
Yes, it is, Dr.
All right. Well, I think that's a great question, and I really appreciate that. There's several qualities, and I think one of the balances that all administrators and teachers are trying to work with right now is the idea of, is it different in the virtual world, or what is different? What are the expectations different, or the standards different? And making that balance, and what is that tipping point, I think is something that has to go, again, with the conversation and trust that you have with the staff. One of the things that I think of quality-wise, the very first thing I look for in any classroom I'd go to is student engagement. Are the kids actively involved in the learning? Are they doing more work than the teacher sometimes? Of course, in the virtual setting, that may be a little different. But the first quality that I would like to look for is, are the students engaged in the lesson? And the second thing, I think, is what is the teacher role that they're playing in that lesson? Are they facilitating good quality questions? And because you can get tricked into thinking the lesson is very strong just because the kids are enjoying it. And so the next quality I really look for is, what kind of questions are the teachers asking? What kind of activities are the kids engaged in? When you take that to the virtual setting, I know a lot of our teachers are getting very good at little breakout rooms where they can mix a class of 30 into, five or six different groups and kind of monitor how the kids are doing it that way and getting some small group collaboration going. So I think that's a good strategy that I think our teachers are becoming more and more equipped with, that they probably didn't do last spring near as much. So things like that would be really good. But again, whether you're live in person doing hybrid or virtual, are the students engaged, and are they engaged in a quality activity and lesson? So Jim and Chris, what you guys?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Thornell. I think part of what we look at, and we actually had this conversation today with a teacher, is what does student engagement really look like? What does student engagement look like virtually compared to student engagement looks like face-to-face? Just because a kid is watching the screen and they're intently watching the screen, they may be watching a movie while you think they're watching you. So it all depends on those high order thinking questions. And one thing that we've asked our staff to do, especially our virtual teachers, is to go ahead and prepare those questions in advance. If you are face-to-face, you can normally do those on the fly. But if you're virtual, you may not be able to do those on the fly. You may need to go ahead and create those high order thinking questions. And then as you are calling on kids, randomly call on students, not call on volunteers, but randomly call on students, and they'll know that you'll be able to tell, are these kids engaged or not. And that's a big conversation we have, is what does engagement look like?
Absolutely. Planning those questions in advance is so important. That's a good point, Pam. Thank you.
And I think that facilitates some great opportunities there for you too, to give your teachers feedback. Chris, I bet you probably have an opportunity here to share some of your experiences in China.
For sure. I mean, engagement itself, I mean, we have students with, sort of refusal to turn on their camera. I mean, that's a very common thing. So the teacher doesn't have that feedback that they would have if they were live, so you don't, it's hard to measure engagement. So having the prepared things in advance, having, surveys of, just to check, are people actually there? Are they listening? Did they understand what the content that was being discussed, or the thought that was being discussed? Are they aware? Are they, and these sort of little things engage. I know, Cahoots and some other things. I don't know if we're supposed to use any names or whatever of products, but those sort of things that, bingos and things that make it fun and keep students involved in answering and discussion and stuff like that, breakout rooms, all these types of things where you can float around and try and create an atmosphere that is more like what the students are used to, and keep their engagement level high. That helps a lot. And as far as the things to focus on as well, there's a lot of things that are not under their control. So, judging a teacher on whether or not people have their videos turned on or not is I mean, even though word judgment is not an appropriate thing, but that's not under their control. Like that's under ours as a school and what we try and enforce or whatever. But most of us did not pursue that battle just because it was a losing one. So focus on what you can control, and that goes back to your preparation, your content, and getting feedback from the students and things like that.
I think those are wise words in general. Focus on what you can control. So we've had a comment out there from a viewer that I'd love to share out and see what you think. So Kenneth Davis has shared with us that he's appreciating our time and knowledge tonight. How do you think it's possible to measure that nonverbal feedback you see in an on-site observation? Pats on the back, thumbs up, etc. Dr. Thornell, I think you might have had a thought on that matter.
I think you guys put him in there just to stump us. But, I think we all as educators can acknowledge that formative assessment in the classroom in the moment is what master teachers do. And so that's something you're always looking for. So that nonverbal feedback in virtual settings is hard. It's hard when we're facilitating meetings with teachers, and it's definitely hard for teachers with kids. What I have been amazed about in my school district this year is just some of the stories I've heard of how creative teachers have become with that. Whether it is, the traditional ticket out and making that into a Google form or a little question throughout their lesson. We use Canvas in our room, and there's a lot of little formative checks that are going on that way. But I think what I would say, Kenneth, is the most important thing is it almost goes back to what we were saying earlier, intentionally plan for those things to happen. And how do we touch that, and how do we congratulate each other and work through that. I have seen in the small group sessions, kids doing it with one another and things of that nature, but intentionally planning it is probably one of the biggest things I would add.
Fantastic. And Dr. Jones, I know we've had some chats about this. What do you think about this topic?
Yeah, I think for us is we provide whiteboards for our kids that they can take home. So you can do a real quick exit slip. The other thing that we've started pairing our hybrid face-to-face students with our virtual. And so you're getting some kids who are at school and kids that are virtual, and they're working together. So that's another way of small group instruction. However, it's a virtual, but using those either thumbs up, pats on the back, but using those whiteboards are very, very valuable for us.
Fantastic. A strategy that transcends those environments. Yeah. All right. So we have another question that was submitted by a participant here. So let's hear from Jen Hawkins. She's an elementary school assistant principal from North Carolina.
Hello. The question that I have is in regards to giving feedback in the virtual setting. So how do you think we should observe teachers and give them feedback in a way that supports them, but also helps improve their teaching practices during this time?
Chris, I know you've already had some great points on this matter. Would you care to elaborate on this particular question?
Yes, I will. I just have class change happening in a second. Can you still hear me?
That's the day in the life of a school, right?
Yeah.
We understand. We understand.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question from Jen. I did take some notes over here. So if you see my eyes shifting, it's not, I don't care about our audience out there. I do. I just want to make sure I'm hitting my points. So at our school, we Bloom's taxonomy and the hierarchy of learning, we're big about that, but we're also very much, as a leadership team, we decided that, we need to have Maslow and that hierarchy in place before we can get to the Blooms and the higher ups. And our situation is kind of unique in that we had teachers and students all over the world when we were no longer able to come back when we started last spring. So it was people not at home and in hotel rooms and whatnot. So teachers with kids, they're teaching out of the bathroom and the kids are, one's on the balcony. It's just, so we had everything like that. So understanding where people were was huge. So we had to invest a lot of time on just sort of supporting the basic needs first before we could really move forward. And it caught us definitely off guard because it was it happened here in China, so it wasn't like we had much warning. So that was, at first it was like a lot of homework and not much fun for anybody. We definitely got better, So then the areas that you want to involve the teachers, I think, in that beginning process of what kind of feedback, like what are they looking for from us, because teachers they're at different levels in their comfort level with things. They may want input about the delivery itself, or they may want input about getting students to answer in group discussions, because there was definitely, like in our experience at least, students were less likely to participate in that open forum. But in smaller groups they were, but still it needed to be nurtured. So they're asking the teachers those questions to guide what I'm going to do to support them. So really having them more involved than you would normally if you were like looking at observation check sheets. So it became much more personalized. I think that was the biggest thing.
I hope that's
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I hope that's a practice that people will take note from and carry forward. That's something worth continuing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So the other thing that I would add is also just we tried to encourage folks to have a culture of observation. So teachers going into other teachers' virtual classrooms, giving them feedback.
Super.
Just positive stuff first, and then getting our HRDs or head of department and grade level leads to kind of combine some of those things in those. They have weekly planning meetings and discuss common themes maybe that department or that grade level is experiencing, to try and move the conversation forward to a more positive learning experience for the classes.
Fantastic. Really expanding the feedback opportunities too. Great.
Yeah, I love that.
Dr. Jones, I see you're nodding your head there. Did you have an additional comment on that topic?
Yeah, what I do at the start of every observation, the first question I ask them is, if you had to do this, if you had to do this lesson all over again, what would you do different? And that creates the reflection, because I don't want to be the one that provides all the feedback. I want them to self-reflect on what they're doing so they can create their feedback, because you're going to go a whole lot more when you create your feedback than when I'm giving you the feedback. But that generates great conversations. And I've had them say, I didn't do very well. And I said, well, what's one thing that you do different? And they'll tell me, and then we will run with that. And so then it becomes, as Robert said a minute ago, it becomes that trust factor, because I'm not in there to catch them doing something. I'm there to help them grow.
Yep. Superb. Final thoughts, Dr. Thornell?
The only one that came to my mind as Chris was talking, and I think it's important for us to realize, is I have shared with my technology team, especially, this is a golden opportunity for you. And it's because it should become seamless. And what I mean by that is, if I'm going in to evaluate a teacher or a principal I guarantee you the teacher knows how to use the technology way better than we do because they've been doing it every day, all year long. And so the evaluation is not about the technology. We have to still focus it around what did the kids learn? What did they participate in? And can I give my feedback around what they learned, not just whether or not the technology itself worked? And so we talk about that a little bit.
Superb. That's a great idea. Thank you. All right, we have another question to share with you all from Dr. Basil Marin, who is an assistant principal at the high school level in Atlanta, Georgia.
Good afternoon, Dr. Basil Marin here. And as a current administrator, I really wanted to pose to you the question, should your educational leaders be reconsidering the evaluation tool that they use to evaluate you during this unique learning environment? Why or why not?
Dr. Thornell, I know you have experience at the district level right now. I'm thinking I might start this one with you.
Well, the easy answer to that is yes. I think we need to adjust and be flexible with that. A couple of things we did in our district, we have a locally developed evaluation system, and our teachers, instead of having 2 goals this year, we cut that to 1. Let's focus on one thing. And I think that hopefully helped alleviate some of the stress right off the bat. I understand even just this week, the teachers at the state level here in Texas, they've added a virtual component to the evaluation piece to add for virtual teachers. So from just a logistics, policy, documentation standpoint, absolutely, we should do that. But more than anything, I think that it comes to the grace that we're giving our teachers and ourselves within the classroom and what they're doing. I love the idea Chris said about teachers sharing and observing themselves. Let's just do that. Let's have more of that kind of thing where teachers are helping each other. I think it's time. To be honest, our evaluation system might have been a little outdated to begin with. So why not go ahead and take this opportunity, take advantage of it, and change it a little bit?
And, I think there's grace in simply recognizing that fact that there's a tool that we really should perhaps have looked at more closely even before now. So thank you. That's some great insight to that. So we have another participant question to share. Curious your ideas here of whether or not administrator walkthroughs should still be conducted in the virtual world of teaching. Dr. Jones, you're nodding your head. What do you think?
Yes, I think that's extremely important because partly what you don't want to do is base a teacher's observations or their summative evaluation in the year on 3 observations. You should be in that classroom multiple times throughout the year. Virtual walkthroughs, to me, gives you a lot of information because you can focus in on things such as teacher questioning, student engagement, teacher inquiry. You can look at how the flow of the class is going, were there differentiation strategies, were there flexible group, and even virtually, did you have a small group setting? So, yeah, I think walkthroughs are extremely important. I think if we don't do walkthroughs, we're missing out on a great amount of information together.
Fantastic. Anybody else like to respond to that question around whether or not we should conduct? Chris, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect is especially when you're on a full virtual situation, the parents by default, especially with the elementary, are more engaged in the learning and involved in school than they have ever been. So they will also expect us to be a presence in classrooms. I mean, you can't be everywhere at once, obviously, but they do expect that. So, my school's private school, elite private school, they pay a lot of money. So that is another aspect. It doesn't, I'm in there for a different reason to support the teachers, especially, last spring it was more of a cheerleading capacity. And then, but I think the parents value that and it needs to be there.
I can certainly imagine. Yep. For sure. Thank you so much. All right. We have another question to share out with you all, and this one is going to be coming up for you from Carla Mayrink. Carla is the director at the Community for Learning in the Dominican Republic.
Hi. I was wondering, how do you balance the tightrope of supporting teachers and yet at the same time having to observe them and give them feedback. I've been reading a lot of comments on Twitter from teachers saying that they are terrified of their upcoming observations, and I don't want my teachers to feel that way. So my question is, how do you observe them without making them feel nervous? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right. Sorry, Lynn, go ahead. I've got this my question line.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go and start with this. I'm very fortunate that not only do we have virtual kids, we also have hybrid kids. So I'm able to not only observe a teacher virtually, because we have EWB days, I can observe that teacher virtually and turn around the next day and observe her in person. And so one thing that we're seeing, especially just at our school, is that the hybrid teachers, or the teachers who are teaching kids face to face, they have that opportunity for wait time. They're asking those questions and waiting for a response. But the virtual teachers are asking that question and answering it immediately. It's like the virtual teachers don't like the wait time because they think they're not engaged, or the kids are going to do something different. Mm-hmm. So when I look at the hybrid or the face-to-face model, I'm able to see a lot of different things. I'm able to see the kids active. I can see the teacher mood. I can see what's going on around her room. I can see all this simple questions, learn activities, the things that are going on in the classroom. Unfortunately, virtual, I have to pin the teacher. I have to pin the teacher to see what she's writing, or I have to pin the students to see if they're engaged or not, or I have to listen to the questioning. So virtual observations are much more difficult than face-to-face. However, to ease their mind, the pre-observation conference is so important. Is when you sit down after you've done a number of walkthroughs. First of all, you never do an observation without ever doing a walkthrough. So we've already done a number of walkthroughs to get them ease of the virtual piece. But then have that conversation, as Dr. Thornell said, develop that trust. They should be able to come to me and say, Dr. Jones, I'm really struggling in this. Can you watch me do this and see what I can do to better myself? Well, I always tell teachers, observations are to grow you, not to get rid of you. So when they get that sense that we're trying to grow them, I think they come to these observations and much better without having so much anxiety. But I do think it's very, very important, whether you do hybrid or virtual, that you have to kind of think about the way things look virtually, the way things are face-to-face, sometimes a little different. Even though you might use the same tool, how you see things might be a little different.
Mm-hmm. Super. Thank you. And I would imagine, Dr. Thornell, your experience with Lynn, you saw to some insight in this area too?
Well, yeah, a couple of things came to my mind when I heard that question, and Dr. Jones probably hit most of them. But, a question that I would have asked her is, does the campus already see you as an instructional leader in your building? And I mean that by, they don't want feedback from somebody that doesn't have credibility with them. So what have we modeled, and how can you model and help them show that you're a learner as well? I think that goes a long way with easing their mind. That you have not forgot what it's like to be in the classroom, so to speak. And of course, this is all new. So probably a lot of people that are evaluating didn't teach this way. And so that adds the element. But I do think that is a piece that really look for is, do you have credibility? Do they feel like you know what you're doing? And the second part there that I would add is that pre-conference that Dr. Jones talked about is, what am I going to look for? That helps ease. If we can agree to that together, and we can come to a common understanding of what we're trying to accomplish in the lesson, it makes everything so much easier. There shouldn't be any surprises.
I like that framework, that there shouldn't be any surprises. And just having been a former administrator myself too, I always often told my teachers, I want you to succeed. It's in my school's interest, it's in the interest of my learners for you to succeed. So I'm going to do everything I possibly can, not only to help you feel supported, but to provide you that opportunity to succeed and give you that feedback so you can grow.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I think one of the things we've talked about in our district, kind of an unintentional consequence, if you will, is the alignment and the planning between teams has gotten better because they're all forced to do it right there together on the screen or however it may be. And so I feel like in some ways there's some intentional planning going on that may be better than it was before.
Dr. Thornell, if I can add something real quick, one thing that we've started doing, we have virtual PLCs, which are virtual teachers get together and talk about student engagement. We also have our face-to-face teachers get together. Because how face-to-face teachers are teaching are a little bit different than our virtual teachers. So we've created a K-5 where they all get together and say how you engage with kids with your kindergarten or 5th grade, which create a lot of conversation that people are being able to use.
Yeah, that's great. Really good.
Great. Fantastic ideas. Thank you all. So it's hard to believe, but we have our last question that's been submitted for the night. We have had some really great commentary though too as well, you guys, giving us some feedback on enthusiasm for what they're receiving from your sharing. So our last question this evening comes from another administrator in China, Thomas Tucker. He's got a great question for us about teacher anxiety and how we can support increased stress levels around that anxiety.
Hello, panel. My name's Thomas Tucker, and I am a colleague of Chris Irvin. I work in China at an international school, and I have a question. I find observations can generate some anxiety in teachers, and doing this remotely would probably increase that anxiety. So as educational leaders, what methods can we use to help alleviate or minimize the increased anxiety levels around observations? Thank you very much.
Chris, would you like to share a response there of colleague?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's great that I was able to bring in some people from my team to participate in this.
Yeah.
So obviously that's something we've discussed at here at school, but everybody, each division has their own, autonomy, I guess. I shared open and honestly with the faculty in the MYP, because I'm just middle years, that, recognizing that they're not trained for online teaching. We all went to Teachers College, which was a face-to-face environment. So acknowledging that and letting folks know that I'm going to be right in there with them, trying to help them brainstorm with whatever techniques they want, feedback on, or ideas I've picked up from other teachers. We kind of gone over a lot of this already, but just being really open, honest, and no pressure about this. For me, the word observation almost kind of went on pause, and it was more just a lot of classroom visits, walkthroughs as they're called, but with feedback, meaningful feedback, and some teachers would ask me to come in and observe a specific thing, but it wasn't your typical, like, go back a few years dog and pony show where you're going to be on Monday in period 4 you're going to go in and do a formal observation. The teacher has a month to plan, and of course they're going to nail it, and there's really no learning from that. They're asking, come in, give me feedback on this. I'm wondering about the classroom environment about this, and so. That's the utopia, right? Like, you've taken off the mystery. They've asked for feedback on something very specific, and so you can go in and do your best to answer it. Again, being fully acknowledging with them that we're in a new place, and I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I will work with you to help figure it out with you and your colleagues that are in the same department or grade level, and definitely be part of that team, if you will, and sharing that with the other leadership within the school as well. It's not all on me. It's the head of departments. We're an IB school, so we have an MYP coordinator, and getting them involved as well is also really, really important. But I think those short visits and asking them for feedback ahead of time. If it was just popping in, sometimes they didn't know I was there, and there were technical issues, and then would be like, "Oh wow, you're here," and they'd feel kind of awkward. "Oh no, it's all good," like just calming them down, chatting to them, and letting them know, "Oh yeah, it's good. I'm glad to see this kid's engaged," because I know who that is, and just stuff like that, and trying to keep it upbeat and positive as much as possible, because it was really challenging and continues to be very challenging for a lot of people.
Yep, it sure is. And those teachers are looking to you for that support, but that's that culture of professional growth, and the teachers feel that support. Dr. Jones, I know you've had some positive experiences this season too. You want to add to that response?
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with Chris in the fact that I think there's number one thing you have to be. You got to be visible. You have to be visible. You can sit in your office. I can do 3 observations. Technically, I can have 3 computers up. I can do virtual observations all day long and never walk out of the office. They may see me virtually, but you need to be in I've completed virtual observations in the classroom, watching the teacher teach virtually, and I'm in the same room.
That's awesome.
Great opportunity to have those conversations. I call them coffee talks. I can sit down after the show with, hey, tell me how they think that went. Let's just have a conversation. So it reduces that anxiety because you are in those rooms so much, you become just a fixture. The kids don't say, oh, hey, there's Dr. Jones. They don't do that because they see me in the classroom all the time. If you only pop in there 3 times a year, you're not going to get that teacher that's not going to feel that anxiety. But when you're in those classrooms all the time, you just become part of the class, you become part of the system, and they begin to trust you. They begin to open up to you. And you all know when a teacher says, hey, I need help with this, they've arrived. They trust you because they know you're not going to use that against them. They're reaching out for help. And our job is the teacher shortage out there. Our job is to keep what we have and grow what we have and keep them there, increase retention.
Awesome.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Fantastic.
Dr. Jones, he's preaching now.
Couldn't agree more. So we've got some people out there participating in our experience this evening. We've got another question here from the audience, if you will. Providing descriptive feedback, so less interpretive and evaluative, respects teachers as thinkers and increases reflection. What do you think about that, Dr. Thornell?
I think it's 100% correct. And I think that several of the things that Chris and Jay have mentioned they do in their schools is really cultivating that. But whether it's teachers getting the opportunity and you helping facilitate or setting up an opportunity for teachers to watch each other, whether it's you as an administrator yourself coming into a classroom and giving feedback. But I try to work with and talk to principals a lot about the difference between providing descriptive feedback. That is just what happened. What is going on? What did I see? And I'm not making any judgment about it. And it sounds easy, but it is very, very difficult to do. It is, and it almost goes to, hey, I know this teacher's a great teacher because she has a great reputation. So she's got a good evaluation before I ever really acknowledge what happened in the room. And the flip side could be this teacher does not have a very good reputation, so it must not be a good evaluation. We're human, right? We think like that. And if you can challenge yourself to use descriptive feedback and work and have a trust level with the teachers and coaches, it will go a long way.
I appreciate that you indicate how that is not easy. It is a skill in itself, but it is sure powerful. So we have one more comment from the audience, folks. We have some great participation out there. We've got a teacher at an international school. And the first week we transferred to Flex, so A and B groups, we were being observed immediately without a grace period to even get used to the tech struggles. What support do you all give psychologically to support teachers other than just jumping into those Flex classes, for example?
Well, my first advice would be to the administrators and say, don't do that.
Right. And we have the same situation in the fact that this week, we started our 4th and 5th grade students on an A-Day, B-Day schedule. And when I was setting up their first observations this week, I asked, hey, you got your A-Day, B-Day kids coming. When would you like me to do your observation? That's been a couple weeks ago. And they're all said, hey, can you wait till we get used to having that A-B-Day schedule? I said, sure. But because we developed that trust with them, the next question was, when can you do a walkthrough for us to see how this is working? But because of that culture that we've already established with each other and with the staff with them, that created some psychological air for them. They needed that time to get used to these A-Day, B-Day kids. But the kids who have been virtual since March the 16th needed that too. They didn't need somebody to jump in the classroom and who's this person coming in. So it gave those teachers opportunity to get used to staff.
And when I say what he's talking about is observing and instructional coaching instead of just evaluating. And I think there's a big difference there. And whether you have an instructional culture in your building. So I think that's a fabulous example.
there's a distinct difference between coaching and evaluating for sure, and their impact. So Chris, would you like to add a thought to that response there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Just it kind of goes back to a little bit of the same response from earlier, where is if you could involve the teachers themselves in that observation culture, especially in those early days, so that, you know, there's way less pressure. There's more of that, you know, you're in the trenches. Like we're trying to get in the trenches with them, but some of them still may never see that we're in the trench with them. As deeply as they are. So that really helps calm the anxiety and perhaps gives more insightful feedback in all truthfulness.
Fantastic. Good, very good points, for sure. This has been an absolutely outstanding conversation this evening. I want to take a moment tonight and thank all three of you for participating with us, Dr. Jones, Dr. Thornell, and Chris Irvin, from all over the world, literally. It's been a pleasure hosting you this evening and doing so with Educators Without Borders and School Rubric. It has been quite a conversation, and I hope our audience out there not only enjoyed it, but that you learned something from the discussion tonight. Thank you all so much. And
thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for
have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching School Rubric's Educators Without Borders, where we highlight voices and perspectives of educational leaders across the globe. To stay in the know with our latest upcoming panels, interviews, tutorials, and more, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and follow us on all social media accounts. Or visit us at schoolrubric.com. Thank you, and until next time.